Good afternoon. Welcome to Erev Shabbat, Eretz Israel, Zohar Kadosh. I'm Avram Shira, and this is the time when the whole world comes to rest. You feel the air, the noises, the sounds that are coming off the hills, from people's houses, from other villages, from the highways far away. Everything starts to get quieter and quieter and more peaceful as Shabbat approaches. And it makes so much sense after a week of noise, a week of tragedy, a week of terror, a week of sickness, a week of all the things that we all hear about all the time, whether we want to or not. And we turn to the Zohar. And what do we have? Pinchas. Parshat Pinchas, we have this man who stood up in front of the entire community and put a javelin through two people who were committing a sin in front of the elders of the nation. And it's an outrageous deed on every side. The fact that the head of a tribe, a prince, took a woman from Moab, from the tribe who had sent out a troop of prostitutes to make us fall into idol worship. He'd taken the princess of that tribe, of that nation, and brought her into the community and did what he did, and Pinchas stood up without thinking twice and did what he did, which is he ended their life with one throw of the javelin. Now, as horrific as this sounds, what does the Zohar say? And the Jewish people were fitting to be saved at that hour. Now, there's one time, there's one moment, there's one place, there's one person who can throw the balance of the world in a good direction. There was a plague, people were dying, people were complaining, people were suffering. And people also did not even accept the judgment of Moses that this was the proper thing to do to a young man, in comparison to the rest of the people there, stood up and killed these prince of a tribe and his girlfriend, let's call it. Girlfriend for a day, right? But they were complaining against Moses that he had done this. And that caused the plague to come out, and 24,000 of the tribe of Shimon died from that complaint. So the whole story is just hard to grapple with in terms of our normal sense of fair, of right and wrong, of balance, of good and evil, of justice. But what we see here, God says, because Pinchas came forward first and quieted God's anger. Now, this is even another problem that people have, was the idea of God being angry. We have this infinite, eternal, merciful, loving God, and all of a sudden, he's all upset. He's allowing things to happen all over the camp. We have to understand the divine presence is such a sensitive light that any evil, any impurity, any evil speech, anything that is off the line, the tight rope of holiness, the Shekhinah's borachat. She runs. Elsewhere, the Shekhinah is compared to a deer. You ever see a deer in the forest? You know, you step on a leaf, crack, and the deer is gone. The deer is a symbol for the Shekhinah. She runs when she hears the slightest noise because she knows she's a vulnerable, soft, easy creature for a predator to make into lunch. But she has super hearing and super sensitivity to danger and knows when to take off. And the Shekhinah is compared to that. The divine presence wants to rest on everybody, including we're talking Jews, non-Jews, righteous, even the unrighteous, the Jews, the non-Jews, the unrighteous still have a chance every moment to come back to Shekhinah, to the divine presence. Because God is making the world new every minute, and therefore every new minute is a new chance to renew the connection to the holy. Well, what happens when God removes the divine presence? What steps in? The negative, the kitrug, as it's called in Hebrew, the prosecution, the evil spirit, the Baal Davar. There's 100 names for it. The other side, the dark side. It just jumps in and fills the place where the Shekhinah leaves. It's not like God's jumping in there to do judgment and revenge on his enemies. That's done automatically by the forces of evil that people create against themselves. God is the protector of us from ourselves. Understand this. If he leaves us, that's when we're in trouble. As long as he's with us, we can't be touched. And so God was angry because of the chutzpah, because that Zimri had fallen into this lust for this princess. And, it's happened before in history, I'm sure, but to go out in public about it, that's the wrong move. That's a move that causes anger. And when Pinchas got up and did what he did, it says shachich in Hebrew. God made God quiet. He sweetened the judgment that had been created. When we do something negative, we automatically release a negative energy in the world. You can feel it if you open your mouth and say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and believe me, I've been there. And we can feel it when someone else says something wrong in the conversation and everything turns dark, as it says, people say, goes south. When anything negative comes and changes the balance of good, the good takes off and the evil takes over. And so Pinchas, by taking action to bring justice and judgment at the same time, God was quiet. Happy? It doesn't say, just quiet. Because justice is the line where we're supposed to operate. That's the line where God operates. And then mercy steps in to push justice aside and to be lenient for people when they need it, because we all need it. But sometimes a person has to stand up and he can change the world in one moment. But it's a special moment that's been created for someone like Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron, who didn't receive the priesthood at first because he was a second generation. But because of this, he received the priesthood, and the Talmud says for 300 years. He lived to be a very old man. Now, how people can live that long, we've discussed it in other classes, but basically, when you live above time in holiness, then time doesn't affect you. You don't age the same way when you're in holiness. And you see people living a very long time today. They lead the right life, and they live a long time. Because the divine light in the soul, it makes the rest of us buoyant and resistant to illness, resistant to wear and tear, resistant to sadness and depression and all the negative feelings. So when he removed God's anger, he shifted the balance of the situation in Israel, but also in all times and places. In the rest of the world, the balance was restored. And that restoration of balance is the difference between life and death, between happiness and sadness, between holiness and the unholy. So I want to bless all of you to stand up at the right time in the right place and do the right thing, and you can do it, and you can change the balance of the entire creation. Remember it. Believe in yourself, and God will make you into that person. Pinchas didn't wake up that morning thinking he was going to be that guy, but God made him that guy because he was ready to be that guy. Be that person in your own life. Make that right choice. And I got to do it myself like everybody else. So we should all be blessed with that right choice at the right time. Change the world to good, and we're off in the right direction. Have a great Shabbat. We'll see you Saturday night, Zohar, and to continue the glory of this amazing Torah.